He's been involved in the Orange County effort to challenge the ballot. He's got an extensive background in the subject, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and what we can do going forward. And give him some round of applause, and let's get going.
Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? What a great group. My name's Erson Russell. I live in Orange County. Native to California my whole life. Just a spoiled, rotten Southern California kid. And just voted like so many other people for a long time. And 2020 happened, and my common sense side started asking questions that I didn't get answers to. And so I started on my venture looking for other people that were interested in this stuff in 2021. Watched January 6th happen. What an eye-opener of injustice. The first window was broken, and I knew that there was something that was going on that was amiss, because Trump supporters wouldn't do things like that, right? They love America, they love God, right? They're faithful and so forth, and all those good things. So I stumbled across some people on an app called Telegram in the middle of 2021. And we were part of another organization at the time called America's First Audit, but we all came to the realization they didn't really have California's, really best interest at heart. So we started Patriot First California in October of 2021, and for the last 3 years, I have traveled up and down the state on my own dime, and 24 counties now, and work with about 16 or 17 of them on a pretty regular basis. And our focus for our organization is to try and really learn these election systems and their complexities, and then package that into simple bite-sized educational pieces for all of you, and turn you all into election integrity experts. The second side that we really focus on as an organization is civic duty, because for too long as Americans we get really good people elected into office, and then we just go back to living the American dream, right? And we're not paying attention to what they're doing, and they fall into the corrupt culture of government, and then we have someone that's compromising on their values. So those two things together we felt were just a really streamlined focus area for our organization. We don't train poll observers and poll watchers. We don't do lawsuits and those things, but we support all those organizations that do. And anybody that wants to poll watch or poll observer, like the Election Integrity Project of California, check with your county GOP chapter. Let's get you out there and get you active. So I call this my Spartan War slide, because I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off at what they're doing to our kids. I'm pissed off at what's happened to our country while we've been enjoying our lives in this great country with so much opportunity. But it looks like future generations aren't going to have those same opportunities that I had here living in Southern California. And those are the things that we all owe future generations as Americans, don't we?
Yes.
And so I just want to roar when I see this imbalance of our government that's not serving us, our government that's not representing us, not being fiscally responsible with our tax dollars, and that list goes on and on and on to the things like COVID and some of the things that we've experienced more recently. So thank God that America has woken up, and to the point of we've sacrificed since 2020 with some pretty difficult times in this country and a lot of unknowns, right? And I honestly believe, after looking over the last 4 years, that President Trump losing in 2020 might have had a little bit of divine providence.
Yeah.
Because if he would have won, and we would have all stayed asleep, and they would have continued to nudge us to the point where they wanted us to be, this country might have been once and for all lost. And so, amen, there was some hand of God in that. We have 4 main challenges in California. I'll speak about them briefly because I want to get to more of the action and summary of the election. Our number 1 challenge is our highly concentrated population. Your county, LA County, it takes the cake. You guys are 1/25 of the entire state out of 58 counties. A quarter of the entire state's population lives in LA County here. On the other end of the spectrum, we have 12 counties with only 15,000 or less registered total voters. So we have this really big imbalance of our population. 28 counties in our state still do not add up to what Los Angeles County's total population is. So when you look at that, why is that an issue in our elections? Because when we have statewide elections, this is an example of 2022. You can see the 8 different statewide races that are up there. This is a list of all 32 what we call Republican-leaning counties. Republican-leaning because in an election, typically more Republican voters turn out than Democrat voters. You follow me there?
Okay.
So we have, just comparing that to LA County, which is on the top, They had in the 2022 elections 860,000 more Democrat voters turn out than Republican voters. But you add up all 32 Republican-leaning counties, and it was only 360,000. Which of those is a bigger number? By like 500,000 votes, and that's one Democrat county that you live in here. That doesn't equal Santa Clara and Alameda County and San Francisco and San Diego and all these others. So we're in essence, we're about 2.4 million votes short of equaling the excess Democrat votes in a statewide race. Why is that important? Because I look at things from what's achievable and what are the things that have clear expectations. And so President Trump in the 2020 election lost California from between 5 and 6 million votes to Joe Biden. In this election, he's going to lose to Kamala Harris between 2 and 3 million votes. Is taking 2 million votes away from the Democrats success in a 4-year election cycle? I think so. But that's because you have the right expectation on what's achievable. And knowing that he would have had to overcome 2.4 million votes just to go and break even really shows us, and this doesn't include any no party preference, really shows us the work that we have ahead for us here in California. And it refocuses our direction on how important our cities are. And we'll get into that in just a few minutes. The second biggest challenge is our Voters' Choice Act and VoteCal. Voters' Choice Act was when counties could start to take away your local neighborhood voting in a garage, your friend's garage, or a fire station, and they consolidated those into vote centers, and they started to add more election days for early voting and accepting ballots after election day. That was the beginning of this problem that we have here in California. VoteCal is basically like your ATM connected to your bank account for voter rolls. So the California state voter rolls are connected live through the VoteCal system to the county voter rolls. Why is this important? Because it contributes towards central control of our voter rolls, and that's where any opportunity for voter fraud starts. If we don't have dirty voter rolls, there is no room to go and commit fraud in mass numbers. Sure, you can still cast some ballots for people that aren't real voters, but in whole, the voter registration records. And so what we find through these different counties, we go to challenge them and go, well, what about this voter and these voters and this voters? And they go, well, we're cleaning them, but the state just puts them back. Yeah. And so until we go and can effectively make the counties 100% responsible for their voter roll maintenance, and then they're routinely reporting it to the Secretary of State as recorded by law, we're going to continue to have a lot of dirt and mud in our voter rolls that we'll have to continue to fight through in these election systems. Number 3, everyone gets a ballot in California. So we started that in the COVID 2020 election, and then that continued into the recall election for Governor Newsom. He immediately codified that in law afterwards in September 2021. It says every active eligible voter gets a vote by mail ballot in our state. Now, this is what we were before, one day of elections in polling places, then Voters' Choice Act counties, 10 days of early voting, consolidated vote centers. Some pros that you could update your registration at these vote centers, things that you can't do in neighborhood precinct voting. And then he passed Assembly Bill 37. We have 29 days of early voting by mail, 11 days of early voting by in person. We can legally accept ballots that were properly postmarked up to 7 days after Election Day. And then we have 30 days to certify the election results. So we have a 59-day election season in California. And that affords so much time and expense and cost and lack of our ability to observe. How hard is it to go and observe 1 day of elections, let alone 59? Yeah. I was just at my county ROV vote center for 31 days straight, 7 days a week for 4 hours a day. My lifestyle and the fact that I run my own business affords me that. But the process of 1 million ballots happening is eye-opening to the average person that goes and sees that. And so we have 29 days, 7 days. And so what has this all contributed to, this everyone gets a ballot in our state? Whether you want it or not, there's no opt-out program for you to say, no, don't send me a ballot anymore. I'm voting in person. Don't waste that money on me. From 2016 to 2022, There was 75 million total ballots that have been wasted in this state. That doesn't include the 2024 elections yet, and I'll be working on that soon. The clouds are about 4 miles up, planes fly about 7 miles. The stack of ballots 60 miles high, it's 2 miles short of reaching space. But is there any astronauts in here? No, I don't think so. I've never run into one yet. What does that look like in something we can relate to? Who's been to Las Vegas? Okay, so you've seen the tallest hotel there, right? The Stratosphere Hotel. And just imagine that you're walking down the Vegas Strip, right? And you're walking up to the Stratosphere Hotel, and you see a stack of ballots reaching to the stop of the Stratosphere Hotel. And it says a sign on it, wasted ballots, like in our elections. I mean, wouldn't you be like, oh my God, are you serious? Like that's how many ballots we've wasted? Well, it gets worse. The stack of ballots actually is 271 of those hotels stacked on top of each other. That's what actually equals the 60-mile stack of ballots that our state has wasted because you didn't vote in person, or you voted in person, didn't use your vote by mail. You didn't miss this election, didn't vote at all. You had someone send a ballot to your house that doesn't live there anymore. Those are the classification of wasted and unused ballots. Does that make sense? And this is what we found and wasted from 2016 to 2022. But the good news is, we're going to pass, your question's coming right up. I see the hand over there, sorry. So in 2026, we're going to try and pass a ballot measure, and it's not going to talk about election fraud or election integrity or those things. We're going to market it as, this law is killing too many trees. Yeah. I think that might sell maybe a different political ideology than we have, bringing some of that environmental movement. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the one thing is that my dad did not get his ballot. He called 1 or 2 times, and they said that it was coming. And it was like 5 days until the election and never came. That's one thing. They just probably some of them some social media accounts. They actually found out that they were dumping ballots in the trash.
Sure. Well, that's why you got to go vote in person in that case and make sure that your vote and your voice counts. Central control of our elections. Everybody hear what happened in Shasta County when they voted to get rid of voting machines? The state within a few months passed an urgency statute. An urgency statute is important because that takes immediate effect. Most statutes and laws that they pass take effect in the future, right? So with immediate effect, they passed AB 969 and said, any election in California that has more than 1,000 voters shall use voting machines to tabulate the election results. So immediately putting Shasta into a corner and threatening them with lawsuits from the state and the all-powerful groups of hundreds or thousands, I don't know how many attorneys they have out there. But that's what happened in Shasta County. They're continuing to fight. They continue to have struggles, but they're not stopping up there, and that's probably the best county we have in the state. Orange County, Huntington Beach, they went, the citizens, they're a charter city, and the only way you can become a charter city is a vote of the people, and the only way you can change the charter is the vote of the people. So they proposed to the citizens of Huntington Beach in the primary this year, said, hey, why don't we have ID in our own municipal elections? Why don't we go and have video surveillance in all those drop boxes? And we used to have over 100 vote centers here when we were a voter's choice, before the Voters' Choice Act. Now we have 13. Let's add 20 more vote centers back and let's do our own municipal elections. It passed by a 7% margin, and immediately the day after it was passed and certified, the state sued Huntington Beach and said, here's the thumb of California is going to come down on you local taxpayers and force you to defend yourself. So with the good news, it was overturned in court. Because they're a charter city, and because the Constitution of California under Article 11, Section 5 says a charter city has all authority over their own elections. It also says that any law that's in conflict with the charter prevails and shall supersede. So that's why they won that. Why did the state sue Huntington Beach then? Because it made other cities stand on the sidelines and say, well, we don't want to be sued. Let's see what happens with Huntington Beach. That time is over. Our cities need to become our battlefront for us to go and start to affect change and bring the minds of the community in together that we can slowly work up towards the county. LA County is a big one. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Got a lot of work and a big fight ahead of us here. But we're not using the cities in that fight for us. We're not using them as part of our warrior force, right? So why don't we want voting machines? It's simple. They're made with source code that we don't know. They're made with parts that we can't look at. If we do, they'll decertify them and cost us money. They're made with electronics. They're hackable. There's no such thing as unhackable. If your elections people or officials tell you that no, we've got this all buttoned up, what do we say? Well, the Department of Defense, Social Security Administration, Verizon, and T-Mobile or Target all got hacked. Billion-dollar institutions. But this is the one unhackable place on the planet, right? So we've got to get good at overcoming those rejections and putting them on notice with these things.
I have a question.
Yes.
When I went down to the registrar, I had a problem where I voted. Not just me, but my mother was skipping. Like, if we were on measure 4, it would skip to 6.
Right.
And if you weren't paying attention, especially 34,
Right.
it always skipped that. Now,
I'll do Q&A at the end. No problem.
now, when I went down to the registrar and I was talking to her about a few issues, that and the fact that my application kept disappearing. Every time I tried to submit, and I did, and I got a response 3 times still on my phone where it was acknowledged that they received my application to be a poll worker. Okay? She had no explanation for it, didn't know what happened to it, and then I also told her about what happened when I went to go vote. She said, that's impossible. I said, why do you say that? She said, because they're just printers. They cannot be hacked. They're just printers. Just letting you know.
And all the, yes, go ahead,
Next,
sir.
but just on the idea of the machines, something kind of funny about this, and I mean, anybody intuitively obvious can figure out that if you have machines entered into a thing that they could be hacked and cheated with, and they could figure that out all the way back to 1975. If you ever watch the old vintage show Bionic Woman, and there was an episode where they, someplace in Africa or something, they had computers come in to, count the elections and on, and that some dictator there had worked out a thing to then, program into the computers to then flip it to him, and so Bionic Woman's mission was to go there and put in a different program in it so it was a fair election. And then another thing, the dictator had a thing where after the election was scammed for him, they were going to make it ban all opposition and shut down any opposition, anybody from questioning the election. Sure. Like, wow, that's in 1975. We're able to figure out if you were to enter that into an election system, this is what's going to happen. This is very likely.
Well, in a more modern example, Elon Musk, he runs technology companies and he says, I don't want machines in my elections.
Yeah.
You can have machines, right? It's simple stuff. So what kind of election system do we want? One that's built on trust or one on transparency? And the one we have now is built on trust, right? We have to trust that lady that we've talked to. We have to trust the machines. We have to trust the duplication process, the signature verifier, the USPS mail service, the drop boxes, and the list goes on and on and on. And so this is more what our elections are looking like now on the left, and this is a small summary of what it is that we have to police. We have to become experts in all of these systems and how our election management systems are running in each of our counties, and they're all different. 39 counties are Dominion, 13 are Hart InterCivic, 5 of them are ES&S, and you guys have a proprietary software in LA County. But all of this that we need to learn, what's the 1% manual tally? What's the details around that? What are they doing? How are they counting? What's a risk limiting audit? The duplicating ballots and watching that and the quality control and printing ballots and taking them around and moving them and scanning them and tabulating them and rejected ballots. All of that, or vote with your neighbors again. One day. Show up in person, show your ID, put your ballot in the box after you cast it, and this is the most important. We return to where we cast our ballot after the polls close, and we watch our own neighborhood ballots be counted together. There's one thing to police in that model. One, where our neighborhood results reported properly to the county. That's it. That's all we have to worry about. It's not going to happen from the top down, though, in California. We're not gonna get the state legislature to go and change those laws for a very long time. So what does that mean? That points again back to our local communities. Our cities, we have the opportunity to make the greatest impact on elections the way that Huntington Beach is leading that. Good news for election integrity, President Trump could sign legislation or executive order banning machines being used in our federal elections. Congress could pass the SAFE Act, which is, they asked for voter ID and citizenship requirements, proof of citizenship before voting in federal elections. The Fifth Circuit down by Mississippi there has a couple other states, but they ruled that Congress has already debated and decided what election day is a long, long time ago. Unfortunately, it didn't come with an injunction to stop that in that Fifth Circuit area or jurisdiction. But there's already court cases being filed now, hopefully to fast track it to the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court ultimately rules and decides election day is election day, it's been debated, it's been decided. Now at minimum, the after election day votes, those will be gone. That'll be done. And for the federal elections, you will not be able to do that. Hopefully, the best case scenario is that there's no early voting anymore. And that federal election day is federal election day, and get those ballots out there and get rid of all these vote by mail ballots and these machines and return to neighborhood voting. So these are some three really great things just to show that the fight's continuing on. There's nothing stopped at the elections, and that's the work that we all have to be doing right now as well. So Patriot Force California, we're really about just sharing knowledge and just educating each other. Eagle Forum, CRA, and other great groups. Bring the education and awareness to you. I will go to any house, any coffee shop, any business with 6 or more people in Southern California free of charge. The time to educate on our elections is now. And sometimes those nice personal meetings are really nice because we get a lot more time for questions and things and so forth. So if anybody would like me to come and speak to your group, family, friends, business colleagues, please connect with me or through Maureen and let me know. But that's my definite commitment to all of you and sharing this knowledge that I've acquired in this little pea brain, as I call it. Learning civic duty, the work now. The work starts now. We've got some great people elected into office at the local and county and state and federal level. The work really begins now for us to start to continue this fight. Cooperation, there's so many groups out there. We're getting better at coordinating and collaborating, right? Each group kind of has its own mission and its goals and objectives. But over the last couple of election cycles, I've been seeing that coordination and understanding and respect of kind of which each's roles are and things. That's happening, so that's nice. Making an impact, that's what. So what do you need to know? What can you do about it? This is the 3 pillars. Build community. We're doing that tonight. Round of applause. Some new faces, some friendly old faces as well. Educating each other. So we started off with a little bit of education about our 4 big challenges. And then our commitment, right? That's the hardest part in warfare, which is what we're dealing with, the spiritual war in our country right now. And that just constant commitment of one foot in front of the other. And I've been so inspired by a lady in Sonoma County named Rhonda Provost. She's in her mid-70s. She's been a marathon runner for like over 40 years. And just how she talks about, like, you know, it didn't matter if it was the first one or the 40th one that she ran in, right? That first 5 miles, you know, the race is like, what did I get myself into? Oh my God, like I have another 20 miles or whatever it is to go, right? But then you hit your stride, and then things become more comfortable and your breathing regulates and those things. And we just have to stay committed to this until we find the right recipe and the right formula to wear all of them out. Just wear them out, where they're so tired now of the fight that keeps coming at them from all directions that we wear them out and they give up and release the reins, right? So here's the first piece of education for you. This is in our California Constitution. Very, very important Article 2, Section 1. Article 2 is for voting in our state constitution. That's the section for voting. The first article, very first sentence, first words, all political power is inherent in the people. Is anybody confused? Those are pretty simple words, aren't they? Well, how do we wield those? How do we go in and when I meet with a new elected official that I've heard is maybe a little challenging or things, I like to say, look, before we get started today, I want to remind you that Article 2, Section 1 of our state constitution says all political powers are inherent in people. And so we have every right to be here today to ask these questions. And our understanding is that you're the elected official that we should be talking to. But the tone needs to be demanding of compliance respectfully, not asking for permission.
Right.
And we've got to treat them like our employees for anyone that's ever run a business or had a staff or a team, right? Article 2, Section 2.5, a voter casts a vote in an election in accordance with the laws of the state shall have that vote counted. Counted. Do you have any confidence or guarantee that your vote was counted the way you cast it in LA County?
No.
That's the problem. And we have the Constitution on our side that these vote systems that we're managing right now violate the state constitution. We don't get a receipt that spits out.
Right.
There's no way we can go back and check later. But in neighborhood voting, we go back and grab the same folder of 673 ballots cast from election night, from the bundles and bundles of ballots, and we recount those 673 right in front of you. And if the tallies came out the same as election night, that is the closest we're going to ever get to knowing our vote counted while remaining the secrecy of the ballot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how we can guarantee those rights through neighborhood voting. So action plan, what's achievable? That's got to be our focus. What is achievable? And right now, our cities are way more achievable than taking back over the whole state. It doesn't mean that we don't support people like Melissa and other state candidates as well. She was running for Congress. But the fight we can't forget about, we can't put that to the side. It's not a down ballot race anymore, is our local city races. And especially our charter cities. Those are the charter cities that you guys have in LA County. I know there's some people here from Torrance,
Long Beach is chartered.
Beverly Hills.
Long Beach.
All over the place.
Now,
Beverly Hills.
why charter cities? Because like I mentioned, they have special California state constitutional authority.
Yeah.
They have the rights to run their whole entire municipal affairs the way they want. Their elections, the local police. And this gives power to the people that they can't, the city council in a charter city doesn't just to get wave the magic wand or have 4 out of 7 people vote and change the whole thing. It's got to be put to a vote of the people.
You haven't
That's
been
how you
to a
can
Long
change.
Beach City Council meeting.
Well, I know. That's why we've got to start with which of those cities might be achievable. Torrance has got a pretty good mayor, but he needs a couple other good city council candidates. Downey, I've heard, has a pretty decent city council, but I haven't met with him yet. So,
Is
but-
Beverly
Mayor
Hills-
Whittier's good.
Is Beverly Hills a charter city?
No.
Not on the list.
no, this is all of LA County.
about it.
Now, maybe they've become since the list that I found or something, Melissa. So there could be.
Maybe I don't understand the distinction between the charter city and.
Well, so there's a general law and a charter city. General law follows the state, and a charter city has its own bylaws, basically like a corporation. Maybe you're thinking of districted or at large.
I know, I don't
At
know
large
enough
is
about-
where the city council person represents every voter, and a districted city is where you only get your one little card out of your jurisdiction. So Huntington Beach, look at what they went. In 2022, they took back 4 seats. They just in a landslide took back the other 3. They have a city clerk that they just won in a landslide. They fought back against high density housing. They fought back against pornography in the schools to the point where they told the entire union for the libraries, look, if you don't get these out of the libraries, we're firing you all with immediate effect, and we'll hire a private company to come and run the libraries. Like, that's the fight, right? That's taking it to them.
They got rid
Cover
of the
the rainbow
pride,
flag.
they got rid of the
Correct.
pride flag.
And let's speak about that for a minute. If we're gonna have a movement on liberty, right, and I've been a part of a lot of efforts in multiple cities to go and get rid of the pride flag on the city council building, but if we're gonna be consistent on liberty and not just conservative values, then we need to have as much of a fight to get rid of Asian Pacific Islander Awareness Month, Women's Appreciation Month, or Black History Month. It is not government's job to divide us into races, sexes, and
That's
classes.
right.
And put one in front of the other. So let's fight for getting and keeping the pride flag off, but let's fight for getting rid of those other celebrations as well that divides our community up into certain subgroups.
Right.
That's not what America's all about.
That's
right.
We're all Americans.
Bring Columbus Day back.
So
Yeah.
focus on your charter cities, again, just for the reasons that was mentioned. Demand more from our elected officials. You know, we gotta get really good at demanding compliance. And we've gotta respectfully make their lives miserable. You know? And I mean that, I'm respectful every time I go in and meet with an elected official, but I already know most of the answers to the questions I'm gonna ask. And so I'm trying to always get them into a smaller and a smaller and smaller box where they have very, very little wiggle room left. Well, you say you follow the law. Okay, what about this law? And I already know those things in the way that I'm gearing up that conversation, right? So we've got to get really good at how we go and demand compliance from these people. Make a decision. This is my favorite lady at least in California, next to my mom. Jan Averill, she's in her mid-80s, sat on the school board of La Habra for 26 years. We're canvassing in Whittier, California. She lives 3 cities away. She drives to Whittier and is out knocking on doors with us for all of our canvassing efforts for change of address. But this is really about making a decision, right? I mean, she made a decision a long time ago and still does today. She opens her home up for local patriotic groups so that they can save the expense. She's got a pretty decent sized home and stuff in La Habra. But we just make a decision. Like I was just told I don't have stage 4 cancer. This is an anecdote. This got me in trouble a couple of times, right? So I just was told by my doctor I have stage 4 cancer. I'm gonna make a decision today, right? I'm gonna change my diet, all the sugar's out. I'm gonna start to work out a little bit, take some extra supplements, or I'm gonna go home and curl up on the couch and I'm going to start, getting all my affairs in order and saying my goodbyes. There's that victim mentality and there's that victor mentality, and we're all victors here. We're in this fight, and we're not stopping until this momentum shifts back towards something that resembles at least common sense, let alone true liberty. I don't know if we can get back to how we were during the founding and the true common law principles, but at least swing it back towards individual liberty and appreciation for what America actually is. We should appreciate everyone's diversity and these different beliefs. It's what's made this country so great. But we keep nitpicking and going after, and I like that person, but 5% of what he says I can't stand, so I can't work with them. We've got to get way, way, way past that in our country. Learn our laws. Who here's taking a class in the Constitution? All right, so think about this. They all take an oath of office when they get elected into office, or police, or people picking up your ballots at drop boxes. When they elected into office or work for government, they have to take an oath of office, right? Protect and defend the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic. Do you know there is no lawful requirement for them to take a class on the Constitution before they swear an oath of office? What an opportunity for the citizens of this state and for America to learn the Constitution. If they don't know it and we do, we can wield that power. If they don't know it and we can hold them accountable, we can weaponize that.
Why don't they require it? Let's require it.
I think it'd be a great constitutional amendment. I'm going to talk to the John Birch Society and see what they think about maybe, with Patriot Forces can have like a huge...
How the heck can they say that they follow the Constitution when they don't even know it?
Great question.
So,
Yeah.
them opening up the border, that's treason. So they're sworn to uphold the laws of the land, that's treason.
Correct.
So that was, why isn't he being held on treason?
Listen, I'd love to see the Republican Party be rebranded, and the Republican Party of California will not endorse any candidate that has not taken a class on the Constitution. How about that for a Republican Party platform, right? You want to talk about liberty, preach. All right, I got less than 2 minutes here. We heard about this, vote earlier on election day, we're past the elections, but the facts are this: ballot harvesting was legal. We needed to increase voter participation. We did that across the United States in major ways. Had some impact in some races and not the impact we wanted in others. President Trump winning the Electoral College and the popular vote, I mean, that was, right? I mean, that was absolutely, it shut down the whole, look how the Electoral College and the people in the popular vote are represented. We silenced that, at least for another 4 years. Got Eagle Forum on there. There's all sorts of groups, all sorts of initiatives between children and protecting the kids, child trafficking, just fighting for our local cities, fiscal responsibility, constitution, and so on and so forth. So many things out there to get involved in.
We need to take advantage of the fact that we have we have the Senate, the House, and judicial, along with the presidency. It's all Republicans, so the bottom line is, we need to take advantage now, to make sure that these laws change now.
It's gonna